Man. Oh, sorry.
Hey, everybody. Welcome again. Welcome to this Saber Day, I guess, post-belated Saber Day celebration. It's also happy belated Jose Altuve Day. Mayor had that official proclamation on 2/7. You know, kind of goes 27. I'm wearing my little outfit for Jose. But we have a great day scheduled here. We're going to have our special guest, and I firmly believe the reason all of you are here is not me. Right. It is this guy, Brian McTaggart, the man that knows probably all about the Astros. Maybe. I mean, I've seen your bio. Been around. So he has a lot of good things he's gonna share with us. You leave for spring training tomorrow, right?
It's Tuesday.
Tuesday. He leaves for spring training Tuesday. So if you have anything you want to ask him, maybe you can ask Altuve or Bregman when he's going to sign a contract. You know, another Astros sign. I don't. And then after Brian talks, we're gonna have some memorabilia stories. I hope all of you bought some memorabilia. You have to share. I bought something. It's not really Astros related, but
Me too.
it is Houston related. Okay, so I found it last night. I was going to bring something else. Then I was looking through some of my stuff, and I was like, wow, can't believe I still had this. All right, and then we'll have like a trivia contest and give away a few things, and then we should get out of here 1:30, 2 o'clock. So without further ado, though, let's go ahead and get started. Brian McTaggart, been a sports writer in the Houston market for 30 years. Okay, beginning at the Houston Post, later at the Chronicle, and now at MLB.com. He's covered the Astros for the past 20 seasons, which makes him the longest tenured beat writer in club history. Okay, he's covered 5 World Series, multiple All-Star games, 2 Hall of Fame inductions, and if sports writers ever decide to get their heads out of their tails, I'm sure you'll cover a 3rd one. Pretty soon.
I think I will. Yeah.
With Billy Wagner. I still don't understand that. Maybe we can even talk about that a little bit. What's going on? You know, and then other major events like Biggio's 3,000 career hit, numerous no hitters. 2017, he wrote this book, 100 Things Astros Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. I thought it was going to be really cool. I'm like, I have this book, and I know Brian's going to talk to us, and maybe he can sign my book. Well, I opened it up, and he had already signed my book. So I was like, wow, kind of a leader in I forgot that Brian spoke with us before. So anyway, he regularly appears on 790 and can occasionally be seen on MLB Network. Grew up in Pasadena, graduated from Pasadena High School in 1988, 1 year before me. I graduated Splendora, 89. So, some 80s kids right here. Okay. And then he went to U of H. We have that common as well. Go Cougs. While at U of H, he worked at the scoreboard at the Astrodome. Okay. And later was a sports clerk at the Houston Post, working nights while going to school. He covered high school sports at the Post in 92, and 2 years later moved to the Chronicle, where he also covered Rice University sports from 2001 to 4. He began covering the Astros in 2004 for the Chronicle and moved to MLB.com in 2009. In addition to all of his baseball coverage, the World Series and All-Star games, he's covered the Super Bowl, the College Football National Championship game at the Sugar Bowl, the College World Series, the Little League World Series, Daytona 500, NBA playoffs, and many other events. He's been married to his lovely wife, Lisa, who is here. Married to her for 28 years. You still like each other, evidently? Or have you made stuff? Did you go to U of H? Oh, see, Coug friendly today. It's Coug friendly. Okay. They're probably all dressed up, because after this, it's Cougs versus Cincinnati here in a couple hours. So go Cougs, right? Lisa's from Deer Park. They have 3 daughters. A UT graduate, Erin, who lives in Austin, and twins, Emily and Amy. who are seniors at Baylor, and they live in Clear Lake. Without further ado, I am so happy Brian is here with us today. Brian McTaggart.
That he read my bio, I sent him word for word, so I appreciate that. So, no, like you said, this is going to be my 21st season covering the Astros, which is pretty remarkable. In fact, I remember my first season was 04. Astros had signed Clemens and Pettit. The All-Star game was in Houston, and I was covering Rice, and I was over at Rice baseball practice. They had won the national championship the year before, and they had like another really good team. So I was looking forward to covering Rice, and my editor called me and said, "Do you want to cover the Astros?" And I had actually turned down the Astros beat a few years before because Lisa was pregnant with twins in 01, and I thought I cannot be on the road all summer and have my wife pregnant with twins with a 2-year-old. So I turned down covering the Astros, but luckily the Chronicle came back and said in 04 they were beefing up their coverages. So at that point I had to say yes. So my first day walking into spring training in Kissimmee, I walk in there and I see Biggio, Bagwell, Clemens, Pettit, Jeff Kent, Berkman, and it was pretty daunting to see all these star players in this clubhouse. And I quickly learned that they're all just normal people, they're all just normal guys. And I thought at the point that I really could just relax and do this was when I wrote a story on they had a non-roster player named John Valentin who was in camp, and he played baseball at Seton Hall with Biggio and Dana Brown, who's now the general manager. But one of the first stories I wrote down there was on John Valentin, his career, and the next day he got cut. And so the next day I walk into the clubhouse and I hear someone behind me say, "Well, I'm never going to talk to Brian ever again." Turn around, it was Biggio, and he started laughing. That sort of put me at ease of like, okay, these are, maybe I can do this. And John Valentin's coming back to camp this year with the Astros, believe it or not. Dana Brown, since they were college teammates, is bringing him back as sort of a special advisor. So, but yeah, it's been an incredible 20 years. I mean, I think that I've probably seen more in 20 years on the beat than any writer has. I mean, I've seen 300 lost seasons, 300 win seasons, a first round pick who was a star, a first round pick who was a bust. They changed leagues, uniforms, spring training sites, owners. I've seen just pretty much everything there is to see. Of course, they won a World Series, lost a couple that at least one they should have won. I mean, I think they probably should have 4 World Series titles now. They should have beat the Nets, and I certainly think if they beat the Rangers last year, they take out Arizona. But man, it's tough to win a World Series. But it's been incredible, and it's been fun to cover this new generation of players. I mean, I'll always say Lance Berkman and Craig Biggio and Bagwell and those guys. That's going to be special people to me just because they were the first team I covered. And they're really pros. They were great players, fun to watch. But the new crop, the Correas and the Bregmans, and now even into the Chas McCormick and Tuckers, it's been fun watching their careers as well. It's weird because now these are guys that I remember when they were drafted. I remember when they drafted Kyle Tucker, and he was 18 years old and the skinny kid, and now he's a star player. And I remember Jose Altuve getting called up to the big leagues. The Astros were they were rebuilding, so they were getting rid of everybody who had a salary. So they had traded Jeff Keppinger, and they had called up this guy named Jose Altuve. And the only thing I knew about him is he was hitting .390 at AA, and that he was 5'6". I think everybody was like, "Who is this guy?" And actually, Jose the other day told a funny story that he said, when maybe some of y'all saw that, when he got here, they told him he was only going to be a temporary second baseman, so they got another guy. Well, that temporary second baseman is going to last 20 years. So he's not only is a great player, superhuman, very humble guy. Everything you read about Jose Altuve is true. One of my favorites to cover as well. I'm a big Alex Bregman fan. He's very much cut from the same cloth as Bagwell and Biggio, just sort of a ball player and a pro. And one of the things I loved about Bagwell and Biggio is they really respected what we do in our time. And so if we went in a clubhouse after the game and, we don't want to be in there too long, the players don't want us in there, and Bagwell and Biggio would come up to you and ask, "Well, do you need me? Do you need to interview me?" And if we didn't, they would go about their business. They would shower and get on their way. And we really appreciate that. And Bregman's cut from that same club. He does that same sort of thing. So it's nice that the new generation still, values what we do because, like it or not, a lot of people like to read what we what we do, and we're sort of the eyes and ears in the clubhouse for a lot of fans. So, yeah, I appreciate that. So, of course, this year's Astros, they have a new manager, Joe Espada, and I'm a big Joe Espada fan. I know probably a lot of you don't know much about him, but he's been the bench coach under 2 managers who have won World Series. He's interviewed for a bunch of jobs. I don't know why he wasn't hired as manager before. I thought he was going to get the Miami job last year. I thought the White Sox might hire him, but glad he's here now with the Astros. And, I think he's going to do a terrific job. He was talking the other day about one of the things he's going to do is he's really going to stress fundamentals, spring training. This is not a great base running team. Watch the Astros. They don't hold runners very well. I mean, Maldonado took a lot of heat last year for not throwing guys out, but Framber Valdez didn't hold runners well. Javier didn't hold runners well. So I think that's going to be a real point of emphasis in spring training this year. And I think we're going to see the Astros play a little bit crisper baseball. That's nothing against Dusty Baker. I mean, I thought he was a good manager and an awesome human. I was so fortunate to get to know Dusty. I mean, I'd never known him at all before he was hired as manager, and just a chance to be around in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, he's a good man, and I'm glad he won a World Series. But I think Joe's got a chance to be a really, really special manager. So I look forward to working with him every day when we're down there at spring training. Spring training for us is a real grind. I mean, it is for the players too, but we get there like it's 8 a.m. the locker room opens. So we're there every morning bright and early. By that time, the players are already on the field. Their bats cracking in the morning. So we're there from like 8 until 5 o'clock when the game ends. So it's weird because we do that for 6 weeks. Everything's in the morning, and then once the regular season starts, everything flips. We do everything at night. So it's sort of weird. Spring training is a schedule that I don't think baseball players are used to, and we're certainly not used to because everything's in the morning. But it is a lot of fun because you get to see the young players, you get to see a lot of their prospects play, and they're going to have some pretty exciting kids in camp this year. I mean, if you look at the Astros minor league system, no one ranks it. Pick up 28. I think they might be last in all the rankings. They don't have anybody in our top 100, MLB.com top 100 as far as prospect, but they do have a lot of good young players coming up. Will Wagner, of course, the son of Billy Wagner, left-handed infielder, can really hit. I'm a big fan of Joey Loperfido, another left-handed hitter who's coming along. They have Spencer Arrighetti, who could be maybe the next Hunter Brown and then the next wave of pitchers. So all that talent's going to be on display as well. But I think the Astros are the best team in the American League. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased. Just looking at the rosters, I think they're better than the Rangers. I mean, the Rangers, Scherzer and DeGrom are going to be out, for half the summer. They're not going to get Jordan Montgomery this year. So I think the 4 best teams in the National League are the Astros, Rangers, and then Yankees, got Soto, of course, and probably Baltimore. They went out and got Corbin Burns. I think that really puts them in a different stratosphere. I'll never count out the Rays because the Rays are always there every year, but I think I looked at the Dakota projections, and the Astros were projected to win 95 games, which was probably more than I expected, but I think they can do it if they can stay healthy.
Ready?
All right, but that was action. But I think they can do it if they stay healthy. I think to me, the key to the whole Astros season is Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, because if they pitch like they did in 2022, I think they have the best starting rotation in baseball. They go 7-8 deep. I don't think anybody does that. But, the second half, the wheels sort of came off for Framber. I think we all saw that in the playoffs. It was pretty bad. Javier, I don't know what happened to him. He just wasn't the same pitcher. I think with Framber, a lot of the troubles came from the pitch timer, because he was a guy that needed to slow down between pitches, take a deep breath, control his emotions. He just didn't get a chance to do that last year as much when he got in trouble. I think it affected him. So maybe another year removed from the pitch timer, he'll get to work with that. But if you look at their lineup now, I was looking at it today, 1 through 7, it's going to be as deep as everybody. I'm really excited about Yainer Diaz being the starter because he can really hit. I mean, I think he's going to hit 30+ homers. He's got a cannon for an arm. I think he could be that. I think he could be an all-star in the American League this year. If they get anything out of Jake Myers in center field, they just need him to be an average player. They don't need him to be an all-star player. He's an average player and plays gold glove caliber defense. I think they're really good. The one area of concern, I think, is the bullpen. Everyone's excited about Josh Hader, but they did lose 3 key pieces of the bullpen last year, and they combined for a third of their innings in the bullpen. So yeah, adding Hader is fine, but he's only going to pitch an inning at a time. And Kendall Graveman is out as well. So beyond the last three guys who are really good, Brave, Presley, and Hader, there's pretty much a lot of question marks. So I think that's going to be a real key thing going forward is the bullpen. Maybe they can move a starter to the pen. We all know at the trade deadline, you can always go out and get a relief pitcher as well, but it kind of goes back to the Fromber Javier thing. You know, these guys are pitching deep into games and take some pressure off the bullpen as well. But I think the Hader signing came out of nowhere. I did not expect that at all, but Jim Crane wants to win, and you can say what you will about him, but his philosophy of not giving out these 10-year, $300 million contracts has paid off really well because he's let a lot of high-profile guys walk in free agency, and they just continue to win. So the Bregman Altuve contract was not a surprise. I think we all know Altuve wanted to be an Astro for life. He expressed that, and even though his agent was Scott Boras, they were able to get that done. I think Boras probably had to go have a few drinks after the contract. You know, Altuve hit probably done a lot better. I think it's going to be really hard for them to sign Bregman because I think he's going to want $300 million. He's going to want it over 10 years because he compares himself to Machado and some of these guys who've gotten these big deals. I don't know who's going to pay him that money, but I don't think it'll happen here. So it could be another case where another star player walks, but you know, they're going to have to find somebody to replace him. They've done a great job at that. But Bregman changed his whole workout philosophy this spring. He moved to, or in the offseason rather, moved to Arizona. He's been working out there. And I'm sure he knows, number one, he wants to win, but of course, he's got a lot of money on the line this year. He's a free agent. So, you know, hopefully for his sake, he has a good year because I still think he's one of the top 5 third basemen in the major leagues. But it should be a heck of a fun year. Is anyone going down to spring training at all? Do you get a chance to go down there? Nobody goes down there, huh? Houston. Oh,
Look, Arizona spring training, is that no?
Sure. Okay. But spring training is it's a lot of fun for fans because you can get up close and personal like no place else. Not only with the current Astros and star players, all the suspects are there as well. They're actually starting something new this year called Spring Breakout. I think it's on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. They're having sort of an all-star prospect game. So the Astros top prospects will play in a game against the Cardinals top prospects. And then after the game, the Astros and Cardinals play. And they'll be in St. Patrick's Day. So that's going to go on around Florida, around Arizona. Something new MLB started this year. So that's going to be a lot of fun. All the Astros top prospects on the field together playing the Cardinals top prospects. So that's going to be something exciting to watch as well. But spring training is a lot of fun. It's a grind. As sports writers, we always say, as baseball writers, we're sort of defensive about our job. We think we like to sit here and say we have such a hard job and going down to Florida and all that. But I remember when I worked in newspapers, they would send writers off to cover the Olympics, and they were wherever the Olympics were. They covered the Olympics for 3 weeks. They would come home so tired, and they would get like a month off, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's such a great job." Well, after 6 weeks of spring training, we get 6 months of the regular season. So it's just getting started for us. So if you guys have any questions about the Astros or covering the Astros, I'd love to try to answer the best I can.
You were talking about some of the competition. What about Seattle?
Yeah, I think Seattle's going to be really good. I mean, I was high on them last year, a couple of years ago. I mean, they lost. They haven't lost much of anything in their team last year, so they were right there with the Astros and Rangers at the end. So I think AL West with those 3 teams is going to be probably the top heavy division in baseball. But I looked it up. I think it's the first time since '83 and '84 that the previous 2 World Series champions are in the same division. I might be wrong. So it's been 40 years. You got Astros and Rangers in the same division. So as good as Seattle is, they're in a very, very tough division. But I love Seattle's pitching. I think their line was pretty good. Their bullpen has been really good in the past years. They just can't get over the hump, and now they're in a really, really tough division. Yes, sir.
I got 2 questions. What motivated you to become a sports writer, and what's going on with Carlton?
Okay. Yeah, well, growing up, I was a huge Astros fan, so I'd watch all the Astros games, and my dad would watch the games with me. And I wanted to be an announcer. I wanted to be Milo Hamilton, because we'd go to Astros games and they would win like a walk-off game or an exciting game. We couldn't wait to get to the car and listen to when they had the recap of how they won it. I couldn't wait to hear how Milo called that game. So I wanted to be an announcer. So when I went to U of H, I majored in broadcasting, but I had started working part-time at the Houston Post and had started writing that I was so far ahead sort of in my writing career that that's sort of the path I took. But I did end up getting a degree in broadcasting, but by the time I took my first journalism class at U of H, I'd already was, pretty much writing daily stories in the Houston Post about high school sports. So I just sort of veered over to writing, but so that's
So you were a sports fan growing up?
yeah. Yeah, I'm a big Astros fan. As soon as I got my license, first thing I did was start driving Astros games and park for $3, get in there for $1. I like to tell people my favorite player is Terry Cole, just because we sit in the bleachers. He's the only player I can actually see very well. He's also a really good player, and I got a chance to know Terry Cole a little bit. So getting a chance to know a player that I grew up just loving, so that's a fun part of the job. So yeah, I was a huge just a huge sports fan all the way through. My dad was as well. We watched games together, and when I started working the scoreboard in the Astrodome, I think I was 18. I went to every Astros game, home game, for like 3 or 4 years. I went to every Oilers home game from '89 until they left, with the exception of one. And I did the scoreboard. I hit B for ball, S for strike, O for out. So I was going to go to a lot of those games anyway as a fan while I was in college, and I was going and getting paid. And when I was up there, I got to meet a lot of people and got to meet people in sports journalism, and helped me get in, some doors later in my career. So, like with anything else, it's kind of being in the right place at the right time and who you know, and then taking advantage of those opportunities. So what's going on with Kyle Tucker? What do you mean?
39?
His contract?
Yeah.
I don't think he's real motivated to re-sign with the Astros. I mean, I think he's probably going to be a free agent. I mean, they have him 2 more years. So Dana Brown said the other day they're going to make Bregman an offer at some point, which I think will probably come before the end of spring training. So I think this time next year that they'll probably have a better idea. But I'm on both sides of Kyle Tucker. Unbelievable player, but to me, he just doesn't always play hard. I mean, you've seen it. He runs first base, not very hard sometimes. Looks like on the outfield, he's not playing very hard. I'm not so sure he's a guy I'd want to give $300 million to. Not that the Astros would do that anyway, but just man, what a phenomenal player. He led the AL in RBI last year, homer short at 30-30. So if the Astros can keep him, I mean, that'd be great. But again, he's going to want $300 million. Frame's not going to do that. So they're sort of at a crossroads now, right? I mean, they have 3 key players who are going to be free agents in the next 2 years. They don't have the next wave of stars coming up that for sure you can.
38,
So how are they going to navigate the next few years with these challenges? The payroll's high already too. So it's going to be an interesting 3 or 4 years to see where they're at, because it's going to get a lot more difficult to keep this sport together and they have a team that consistently. Yes.
To follow up on that, Wagner and Vito you mentioned earlier, think they're quality enough to replace it, right? I think that can go outside.
I mean, it depends. I mean, this will be a big spring for those guys because it's the first big league camp for local Cheeto. Wagner was there last year, and I don't know if you remember, he hit the ball really well in the spring, and I think he missed like 6 weeks because he had a hamate bone fracture. That set him back a little bit. I think they could be. You never know with these guys, but I know they're high on both those guys, so we'll probably know a lot more about them after this year when they get another full season under them. And they will season, yeah, like partial season, yeah. But Loper Fito's, I mean, he can play all over the field, left-handed hitter as well. Jacob Melton, was another guy who's a lefty as well. So they had left-handed bats in the minor league. You had a question, sir?
Yeah. You talk about Kyle Tucker. I just remember he was a 30-30 player last year, but only for an inning.
Only for an inning, yeah. Okay, I'll tell that story. I think it was the last regular season game. He did 1 homer for 30-30, and he hit that ball. And it was the weirdest thing because he made it all the way around the bases, and the official score announced inside the park home run. I'm like, oh, it's 30-30 season. And then 10 minutes later, he's like, well, under review, it's a triple and an error. Okay. Then about 10 minutes later, they were like, Well, after review, it's inside the park homer. We were on. Then they came back again and said, well, after review, it's a triple and a fielder's choice. So I don't know if anybody remembers that play.
Yeah.
And the shortstop got the ball, just didn't throw it home.
Right.
Tucker went home. So I don't think it was a home run. Also, I don't think it was, there was no error on the play. It was a really weird play. Tucker appealed because he wanted that home run to be 30-30, but I didn't think it was a home run, so I'm kind of glad he didn't get it. And that was going to be a squirrely way to get a 30-30 season. But I think he's got another good shot at a 30-30 season next year. But I've never seen anything like that where the official score changed it 4 different times in a matter of 3 or 4 innings. So that's when they clinched the division. I think on that day. Yes, sir.
So Bill James famously said there's no such thing as a clutch hitter. So covering the Astros, in your opinion, do you think the Astros did have a clutch hitter?
Like a clutch hitter at any point
Yes,
since I've covered him?
yes.
I think so. I think there's something to be the guy up there when someone's on base who's got like is not too big for the moment, has just is calm, and some guys I think just rise to the challenge like that. I mean, look at all the big hits Correa's had over his career. I mean, his career's probably been not what he wanted or what most Astros fans expected, but he's had huge clutch hits throughout his career, and even in the playoffs last year with the Twins, he had some too. I think it's just in some guys' DNA. Lance Berkman was a clutch hitter, and we saw that too in the World Series in 2011, and then Cardinals when he had that hit off Scott Feldman that pretty much kept the World Series alive. So some guys can't hit in the clutch. I think they're just not made for it. But no, I think there are clutch hitters. What do you think?
I do too, yeah.
You have two babies. Two that's clutch hitter. Yeah, that's he is the clutch hitter. Oh,
Tenure
sorry.
with Chronicle and have you been or voted for the Hall of Fame?
No, I think I'm going to get a vote in a couple of years. So to be a Hall of Fame voter, you have to be in the Baseball Writers Association of America 10 consecutive years. And so when I started to beat at the Chronicle, I joined the Baseball Writers Association. And then when I went to MLB.com, at that time they did not let MLB.com writers in the Baseball Writers Association because they thought we were sort of an arm of PR, that we weren't like true reporters. And then after a few years, when newspapers started closing more and more, and there were less members of the BBWAA, they realized that they needed our numbers, and we're also legit reporters. I mean, we know what we're doing. So I think it was 2016 I got back in the Baseball Writers. So probably have 2 more years. So I'm not going to be able to help Billy Wagner get in the Hall of Fame next year, but maybe I can vote for Altuve down the road. But that's going to be way down the road now because he's going to be playing for a long time. Yes, sir.
Nolan Ryan is that, Nolan Ryan,
Yeah, ever since they fired Reed Ryan, Nolan's been out. He hasn't been around at all. So he sort of had a falling out with the organization again. So Rain pretty much fired Reed Ryan via text and sent him a long text message, and that was it. And then Nolan pretty much wrote off the Astros that day. He hasn't been around since. So yeah. I mean, I actually saw some of the text message, but it pretty much just said they wanted to move in a different direction. And I thought it was a shame because I thought Reed was such a good public face for the business side of the organization. I've seen him like picking up trash in the bathroom. He walks the stands and talks to fans. He was so good at that job. And I don't know if he was getting too much credit, or I know that they said that Crane's son was not going to fill that role. But, I've never seen Crane's son at all. I mean, I don't think anybody really does it, but to be aligned with the Ryan family is always a plus. I think this, Nolan is Nolan, and Reed is such a good guy and brought so much to the table. So yeah, it's a shame that happened. Yes.
With Pena's offense this year.
Yeah, I think the closer is going to be Hader. I don't think they're going to pay Hader $19 million not to be the closer. I don't know. I'm sure some of you with Joe Espada is going to name Hader the closer, and I think that he wants a dedicated closer. So, I don't know why that hasn't happened yet, but everyone keeps saying Ryan Presley's on board with it and he's okay. But until we hear from Ryan Presley, that we'll see. But I mean, Ryan's a pro and he's probably like not happy with it, but he also realizes the Astros got a lot better with Josh Hader. So I think Hader's going to be the closer just because he's one of the elite closers in the game. What was your second? Pena, right?
Pena's out.
If you look at his numbers from last year, they were actually not too bad, other than the power. I mean, he walked more, he struck out less. But for some reason, he just could not get the ball in the air. I think his OPS plus and his OPS were just a little bit below what they were in 2022, but the fact he just could not get the ball in the air, but he didn't hit a home run after July 5th, which was just astounding. And he hit what, 20, maybe 20 the year before, and then we all know he hit some in the playoffs. So that's a head scratcher to me. But if you look closer at his season, he put the bat on the ball pretty good and had a pretty good offensive season. It's just the lack of power, I think, just overshadowed. But it's a big year for him. I think he's definitely got to take a step forward offensively.
Two players, comments on. Abreu and Montero, what are your predictions, this year?
Yeah. I don't know about Montero. I mean, with relievers, you never know. I mean, we all know that contract was crazy. And when they signed him at the time, everybody was like, why are they giving this guy 34 million? I mean, it was kind of crazy. But, you know, Abreu, I think, just needs to probably get some rest. I'll say this about Abreu. I've never seen a player in the batting cage as much in my life. We'll go in the clubhouse pregame and he's in the batting cage. We leave the game after the game, he's in the batting cage. He works really, really hard. And I think it really killed him that he wasn't able to produce like he was. I think he was injured. Of course, he had the back injury. And once he came back, he hit better. But I also think at his age, they probably need to get him off his feet a little bit more. And, you know, maybe Caratini can play some first base. If Trey Cabbage makes it team, he can play some first base. But I just think at his age, what is he, 36, 7, as far as we know, that I think he could probably DH more, maybe not start every single game. I think just, but if he can, whatever went on in September in the playoffs last year really worked. I think a big part of that was just him getting healthy. He just looked like a different player. Yes.
As a sports writer, who do you like to?
Yeah, I'm not a big podcast listener. I do listen to Buster Olney's every day during the season. I'll put it on like fast so I can listen to it a little faster if I'm walking or whatever. I'm a big fan of Tyler Kepner of the New York Times. I don't know if anybody follows him. I was a big fan before he worked for the Chronicle and us for a while of Richard Justice. Of course, he's retired now. I mean, guys like Jeff Passan and Buster Olney, who break news, also are so plugged in and write some really good stories. It's hard not to, you know, read everything they write as well. There are different markets where there are some writers that I always like to read who are really plugged in, like Derek Gould, St. Louis Post-Dispatch covers the Cardinals. Is just a guy, if you're going to follow the Cardinals, he's sort of the guy to cover. But there's so much coverage nowadays, and I'm bullish on MLB.com. Of course, we have 30 beat writers who cover every team, and I think we do a really good job doing that. And, you know, The Athletic now has beat writers, but they also don't have beat writers for a lot of teams like the Rangers. So our coverage is a lot more comprehensive, but there's so much stuff, podcasts out there to consume, especially with Astros. There's podcasts everywhere. It's just hard to keep up with all these podcasts and who does podcasts. Is there one I should be listening to? I don't know. Is anyone listening to the podcast, Astros podcast?
Rob and I are say,
Yeah.
What do you think?
Something to fill a hole.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not a big podcast guy. So
Well, we had those Locked On Astros podcast guys talk to us. Y'all remember them?
yeah, I've done on there before. Yeah.
Yeah. So they seem plugged in. They interview a lot of players.
I think the case for me is like when I'm off and away from the Astros, I don't want to listen to something like the Astros. I want to listen to something else. You know, it's just like, okay, I just want to get away from the Astros while I'm out for my walk. So that's probably, you know, I probably should listen to more, but it's just, you know, it can be too much at times. So.
Brian, I got a quick. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yes, sir.
What do you think about the Chronicle 6 o'clock deadline for?
Wow. I mean, I think it's pretty sad. I think they should quit publishing a paper. Just go online only. I know there's still people that like the paper, but if you're not going to have the next day's game in there, the next day's information, then what's the point? I mean, the 6 o'clock deadline is ridiculous.
Update their own.
Yeah, when I was at the Chronicle, our deadlines were like 1 a.m. In fact, I think it was 96. I covered the state high school championship baseball playoff game in Austin. It got pushed back because of rain. It was Pine Oak and somebody, I can't remember. But the game started at 11:59 p.m. Saturday night, and it got in Sunday's paper. That was 28 years ago. So the newspaper industry has just deteriorated so much the last 30 years. So when they called me in 09 and said, "Do you want to cover the Astros at MLB?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's the best move I've ever made," because things were bleak at the Chronicle and they only got worse.
You see like what the New York Times did, going with the Athletic, is that gonna be the trend, you think, of the inspectors?
I don't know. That's weird because I think they bought the Athletic for the subscriptions because, yeah, and they're still losing money on it. So I don't know if that's ever going to turn. But they got rid of their entire sports department. I mean, when I was at the Chronicle, there was probably 35 sports writers. They had 4 outdoors writers, 4 high school writers. They had a writer based in Dallas, writer in Austin, writer in College Station. Now I think they have maybe 6 writers total. They had 4 columnists back there, and now they have 1. So it's really just a shell of its former self. And I was a guy who always read the newspaper because my dad read the newspaper. And so, you know, when we got married, I got the newspaper. Our dog would go out and get the newspaper and bring it in. It was just, I could not envision my life without reading the newspaper, having it in my hand. And lo and behold, at some point I quit getting the newspapers because it just wasn't worth it anymore. Yeah, I mean, you can read it online, but so. Yeah, I guess everything changes, but yeah, it's been kind of sad to watch how that's all. Yes, sir.
Did you say Tucker doesn't play hard?
I think he doesn't play as hard as he could. Yeah, if he rolls over a ball to second base, he'll pretty much almost walk to first base. I mean, has anyone else noticed that at all? Or?
Yeah, I noticed he gets frustrated a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's what
he's just sort of like us.
Yeah. He is, yeah. And I think part of his deal in the outfield is he does make it look a little easy the way he gallops around, and you think he's not going to get the ball, and then he gets it, sort of. But one of the things I loved about Craig Biggio is he ran hard at first base every time. I'm talking spring training. It didn't matter. He was going full blast first base every time. Didn't matter. Yeah, Pete Rose, right. It just didn't matter. That was just his thing. And now if guys hit the ball right to the second base, and they're going to dog it to first base, it drives me crazy. I think Tucker's a great player, but I just wish he'd play a little harder. I don't know, maybe Joe Spada can get a little bit more out of him. I hope you're not texting him right now. Tell him.
That's what we're doing.
Hey, Mike, yeah.
Mike has a question.
Yeah. Guys made the team last year, a little bit out of it, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be in the mix this year. Hensley and Jokes. They're going to be in the mix this year, like their bench. So they're going to have Caratini on the bench, the catcher. They're going to carry 2 catchers. They'll have Dubon, of course. And I think there's 2 other spots where Cabbage will be in the mix, Jokes, Hensley, Ray Kessinger, who they really like defensively, but I don't know if he can hit. And Singleton's going to be back this year as well. So the bench is going to be pulled from one of those guys. Dusty really liked Jolts. I'm not sure how much the spot is going to like him. I think Jolts had more starts in left field last year than anybody else on the team, which is incredible. So yeah, he'll be back this year. Yes.
Actually travel with the team, same hotel they stay at on that.
No, I travel on my own. I do, I fly my own flights and get my own hotels. Years ago, before I was on the beat, writers used to travel on the charters with the teams, but I think that died a long time ago. I had been on the charter one time when they went to Mexico City in spring training, and it was really incredible because as soon as you get on the plane, they start giving you food. Had a menu, and then they opened the overhead and they were pulling out. Springer was walking down the aisle with snacks. There's gummy bears been thrown around, and the plane's taxiing, and it's taken off. I have my seatbelt, and I'm sitting there, and the players are walking around, and there's seats reclined and tray tables out, and like the rules. And I was just like, "Is this the way it always is?" And so that was in the middle towards the end of spring training. Before we were on the flight back home, AJ Hinch told me, he said, "Just so you know that I'm going to be making some roster cuts and flight back." It was like a 3-hour flight from Mexico City to Orlando. He's like, "Please don't report anything." I'm like, "Fine." So I was sitting towards the front of coach, all the players were in the back. And sure enough, like steady stream of players were walking to first class, and then they came back with their heads down, walking back, because Hinch was cutting them from camp, so. It was an eye-opening experience being on the charter, so. There are times it would be nice, because as soon as the game is over in a series, they pack up, they leave, and they're gone within.
53 or chips and salsas
And
ready?
usually I have to wait for the next day to fly to the next city, so, but, I do like getting my free fire miles.
Much interaction with the radio announcement and TV announcement?
Oh, yeah, I see them all the time, 'cause they're on the press box, and, yeah, we're always hanging
I
out.
mean, are they giving you stuff and you giving them stuff? I mean,
Not really, I mean, I'm sure they read what we write, but before games, we have a session with the manager, Spada, so we'll gather around him in the dugout, and everyone's asking questions, and those guys are there, so. They're taking notes about that information just like we are. Yes,
Understand Reggie Jackson is kind of in relations with the team. Does he have any? Involvement with the Astros? Do you ever talk to him?
yeah, I talked to him quite a bit because he's around all the time. He's like an advisor, he's really close friends with Jim Crane, I think they met because Crane had a house on Pebble Beach. Reggie had a house on Pebble Beach and they met, so. Crane and Reggie have become, pretty tight, and. I know that Reggie was around a lot last year and even in spring training, and he was on the field talking to players, and I think it was frustrating some coaches that he was talking too much to players. And I think Espada is gonna maybe put the brakes on that a little bit, that they don't want, Reggie Jackson in their ear as much. I don't know what he was telling them, but, Reggie's an old school guy and might have been telling them things that, Astros, didn't agree with, but, yeah, he's interesting because the first time I saw him up close, I was really surprised how little he is because. Yeah, you think Reggie Jackson, you watch him on TV, he's this big hulking figure and hit all these home runs, and then, I mean, he's 80 years old now, but still, he's way smaller than I thought he was, but he's still Reggie Jackson, he's still pretty cocky, but he still has a lot to offer, he still knows a lot about the game, and I like talking to him just because Reggie Jackson, and he's a legend, and I made the mistake a few years ago, in the playoffs were at Fenway Park, and it was the anniversary of his 3 home run game. 77 World Series. And Reggie, it's the anniversary. I said, do you remember the 3 pitchers hit the home run off? He's like, what do you think? And then he proceeded to tell me everything about each one of those pitches.
Right, I got. You've been a fan of the Astros for a long time, and now you're pretty much plugged in. So I just have a general question about their philosophy of signing international players. They're obviously in the Cuban market. They just signed those 2 kids from Cuba. And how come? And correct me if I'm wrong. How come I never heard about the Astros digging or looking into Asia or Japan? You hear about Yamamoto, and obviously maybe that's a little bit out of their league, but
Yeah.
You're like, I don't really see them going after international players in Asia. I'm just correct me
Yeah,
if
I
I'm
don't
wrong.
know why that is. I know at some point early when Luno was here, they went to China. I'm sorry, went to Japan. And I think they were trying to open some pipeline and it never happened. So I don't know why they're not active in Japan at all. When Ed Wade was the general manager, they had a scout who was Pacific Rim director. It was dedicated to Asia, and I don't know if they signed that one guy, Moon, do you remember him? A shortstop named Moon, who they put out this long press release. I don't think he ever reached the big league. So yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, they just
Bring it up.
yeah. I'll have enough time down there to have.
Because he's always asking, my grandson.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, more and more Japanese players are coming over here. Koreans, yeah. I mean, and they're great players too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talent over there. Yes.
You fill your days in the game, you said. Warming up and everything, I mean, all day. In the hotel, that's what
Yeah, well,
we keep busy.
if I'm on the road and if it's a night game, I don't like staying in the hotel, so I'll go out and I'll walk. I try to stay downtown close to the park, so I'll just go out and walk, put in my AirPods. And just try to, especially if the weather's not, like if you go to Seattle in July and it's 55 degrees, I'm just gonna walk for a few miles and I just don't like laying in or staying in the hotel if I can. There's some cities that you stay in, it's really not walkable, or if you're staying by airport, there's not a whole lot you can do, but. Yeah, I like to get out and just walk around the cities and just,
55.
yes.
When the schedule comes out like this schedule, are there things you're excited about, matches you're excited about, or stadiums that you get?
Yeah, when the schedule comes out, I always look at opening day, who they're gonna play, always look at, well, now they play everybody home and away pretty much, but you always look at, well, who they're gonna play interleague away. Always look at who they end the season with, where they're gonna be at the trade deadline, because no matter where they're at the trade deadline, I'm gonna be traveling on that city. And always look at who they're playing on my birthday and Lisa's birthday, so and I take that weekend off or not. But like this year, they're going to Wrigley Field for the first time in 2013, so I'm really excited about the Astros going back to Wrigley Field. I haven't been there since 2012, and they've made, they've done all these upgrades, not only to the ballpark, but the whole area has changed
Yeah.
as well. So looking forward to going back to Wrigley Field and seeing all those changes. I always like going to Arlington just because I can drive there. So I always look to see when they're going to play the Rangers. And this year they play them right off the bat. And they go to Arlington like second season stuff.
Then they go to Wrigley.
Late April. Late April. And I always look at when they're playing in New York and places like that. Look at do they play Minnesota in April, or do they play them in July just because of the weather? So where the cold weather place is going to be, and try to avoid those. Yes.
What are your top few favorite ballparks?
My favorite ballpark of all time, believe it or not, is Pittsburgh. I've heard people say that. It's just a beautiful park. I mean, they did such a good job with the setting. Yeah, one they have now, yeah. I love Fenway and Wrigley just because of the history and the way they're situated. You can't go wrong with them, but Seattle's really nice, San Diego, so many nice parks now, but my favorite park for a long time has been PNC's. They did a really, really nice job with that park. I don't like the Rangers' new place very much for a lot of reasons, but I don't know if has anyone been there? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look like anything special. I will say the amenities inside are incredible. Like players love it there, just because everything's so nice. But it doesn't look very good.
And what I liked about the stadium, all the jokes about how it looked to the outside is there's so much room on the concourse to walk.
Yeah.
Versus Minute Maid, they added all of these booths, so on really heavy days, it's ridiculous trying to get through the concourse. It's a fan experience. I actually liked is the Rangers who stayed a lot more than Minute, and I love it.
Yeah. We were talking about that last night at the World Series game in 22, and barely moving the concourse. And then she didn't want to go to the next game, even though we had tickets, because I'm going to watch it at home. There were just too many people. But they keep adding booths. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Brian, I follow you on social media, and I see you respond to people every week. So my question for you is, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with the social media rage crowd against Seattle? I mean, do you just like?
I'll pretty much ignore it. I mean, I've gotten it.
How do you respond to some people like U of H stuff?
Yeah, I try to only respond if it's something not constructive. If it's nonsense, or I muted everything to do with trash cans and Astros, not because I really care. It's just I was so tired of seeing it. So I muted all that stuff. And then, of course, the Rangers GM called me all kinds of names last year. And so once the Rangers won the World Series, I was getting destroyed on social media. So I just learned to just ignore all that stuff. Doesn't really. Social media is not a real place. It doesn't really matter. So it's a good avenue though for me to put stories out there and information, because it's weird, because when I go places and people come up to me and say that they follow my work or whatever, 9 out of 10 times they say, I'll follow you on Twitter. They don't say, well, I read your stuff on Astros.com, or they follow me on Twitter. So I got to remember there's a lot of people on social media, and that's how they get their information as well.
And the Rangers stadium, but it looks a lot like this.
It looks on pictures, but when you're there, it really doesn't. Yeah, they have those columns in left field, but they're situated this way. But yeah, it doesn't. It's kind of dark in there. It just seems like it's very dark, and Yeah, I didn't.
Anybody? Go ahead.
Yes.
So I think it's related, and there's a question, who's gonna lead off? Have you heard anything about?
I don't think there's any questions. It's gonna be Altuve. Yeah. No, it's not too early. I mean, I think it'll be similar to last year. Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Brave, Tucker, Diaz, McCormick, Myers. Penya's in there somewhere, yeah. So it will be interesting to see how Espada does it, if he's gonna have more consistent lineups or how he's gonna handle, time off for some of these guys, but I think there's 100% chance that Jose Altuve is the leadoff hitter on this team. So, and Altuve told me something interesting last year. He thought that if you remember, he had an oblique injury. He missed the first 43 games with he broke his thumb or his finger, and then he came back and had an oblique injury, and he thought he came back a little too soon. That the trainers told him to just take it easy. He was such a hurry to come back that he ended up hurting his oblique swinging. And he said that he wanted to play a full season with the ship. He thinks he puts up, 600 plate appearances with the ship being gone now, that he could put up some really good numbers. So it'd be interesting to see if he can stay healthy and play a full season with no ship, how he really takes advantage.
So you mentioned McCormick and Myers, same lineup. So how do you think Espada's going to handle the McCormick Myers situation in the center field?
Well, they want Myers. They want to see what Myers can do. I mean, it's a case of they don't have any more money to go get anybody. And Myers is a great defensive player. He's had, some stretches where he swung the bat pretty well. So it's going to be McCormick in left, Myers in center. Alvarez is going to play more left, which moves McCormick to center. I mean, I think we'll see that left field center shuffle sort of like we have. And then if you get to Memorial Day and Myers, is not doing it at the plate, then maybe they have to do something else. But they really want to give Myers a shot to show that guy can be a solid big league player. Like I said before, he doesn't need to be Ken Griffey. He needs to be, I think, an average offensive player, and then defensively, he's as good as anybody.
When you watch him every day, is he that much better than McCormick center? The McCormick's pretty good.
McCormick's pretty good. Myers is a little better. His arm's better. Just gets better jumps, covers more ground. But yeah, I'm a big fan. I think he could be an everyday center fielder. He can play left or even too.
Gain weight.
Seems like a big, eating Dusty's.
As good defensively as Marisnik.
Marisnik might be the best defensive center fielder I've seen. And that's weird to say, just up close, but man, he was so good. He could get everything. And when he dived for a ball, it wasn't like he's diving to dive. He's diving to get it, and he would get it. Or Marisnik was, I know he was an underrated defensive player. I thought he was so much fun to watch. Just
Who is he now? Springer's for these.
Springer's, yeah.
Free agents.
Released by.
Is Myers' arm strength back to what it was before he injured himself?
Yeah.
Because it seemed like watching last year, he used to throw a frozen boat before he got injured. It didn't look like he could do that.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been back to like it was. It's something last year at some point he was throwing with the cameras on him and stuff. He was like throwing 90, 91 for the outfield. It's pretty good. I don't know what he was at before, but that be interesting to see if his arm strength is. Yeah, but
He was
never
way
famous
above what it was before,
Yeah.
but now I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the big, we're big on doing. See, this is possibility center field.
Yeah, I think he'll play some center. I think Espada's already, but I think Espada really wants him on the bench just to have somebody lazy the game and just put in, he can play him pretty much everywhere. But I think he will play center field here. And he won a Gold Glove last year, which, in fact, we were in Toronto and I wrote a story about how well Dubon was playing. And I wrote in the story like, well, he's probably not going to win the Gold Glove. Next day, Dubon comes out. He's like, Ryan, they do award Gold Gloves for utility players because they just started that the year before. And lo and behold, he went and won it. What am I?
Okay, look.
Yes.
So I heard on a study sheet, they talked about dating and how he really wanted to change this possibly during the middle of the year.
they decided not to because of the middle of the year. Have you heard anything about that? Is it more going to change his thoughts, changes?
I know he's changed some things up. I don't know about the middle of the year. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I think he's been working out in Louisiana this year. I mean, that's like a good spring training thing when I get down there and talk to him about changes that he made. But I think he's been trying to change things with swing, working with Marucci guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk about colors a little bit.
Sure.
Yes.
Everyone loves my colors.
Like Kevin.
Yeah, I like covering Lance, but yeah, it seems like he's more concerned with his image a lot of times than being on the field. And man, he doesn't want to be injured. Obviously, he does things he can't control, but after a while, you're like, when you say, "Well, I'll be back in July," well, it might be August. You're like, "Hey, just wake me up when you get back."
Is he working on staying weight?
So Lance is so bullheaded. He's gonna do what he wants. If he gets injured, he'll just continue to collect money. So I thought that was a bad contract when they signed him to that 5 years, 85. I was like, this is not the man. And it had. It should be the G.
Do you see him moving to the bullpen? Because that's what his dad did.
Yeah, I think he could at some point. Yeah, but again, convincing him of that's gonna be really hard. He thinks when he's healthy, he's one of the best starters in the game, and he is really good, but he's never healthy.
Open already being kind of thin right now. I think there's a good chance that Forrest Whitley break camp will see for 10. I know they've moved him out there.
Yeah.
I guess we went and saw him for our safety. He's pitching.
Yeah.
Still looks great.
Yeah, I think this is sort of it, but I think he's got a shot to make it just because there's 3 spots in the bullpen that are wide open. If he goes there and shows he can, as a reliever, that he can be effective, that's going to be one of the big storylines, whether you get one of those spots. But if it doesn't work as a reliever this time, then I think that give it long enough for opens. He understands that. He realizes that they've given him a mile-long path here to try to get this ironed out. This will be his last shot. But yeah, he's going to be intriguing to watch. Yes, sir.
Verlander, to me, has the same mental and physical approach that Ryan brought to the team, where he tried to last a long time. Ryan pitched about 47, something like that. And I'm wondering whether we might give Verlander an extension. The Astros for another year or 2 compared to where we're at.
Yeah, I think he has an option this year. If he pitches 140 innings,
45.
yeah, so they could have him for 2 more years. Brain really loves him and made him, I think, a pretty good offer before he went to the Mets. So I think if he has, his age 41 and age 42 seasons go really well, I think Brain will want to resign him because at that point he's going to be getting close to 300 wins.
Yeah.
And
I think they're going to want to have that.
Yeah.
The Astros, but
Right, yeah, and yeah, at that point, does he go in the Hall of Fame wearing an Astros cap? All the stuff he's done with the Astros sort of reminds me of Nolan Ryan. He went to the Rangers, it wasn't there long, but he, 5,000 strikeouts, 300 wins through 2 more no-hitters, goes in the Rangers. The Rangers cap in the Hall of Fame, but Verlander, even though he played 13 years in Detroit, I could certainly see if he stays here another couple of years, he could go into the Hall of Fame wearing an Astros cap because his best years have been here.
Anybody else?
Got one more.
What happened with Luis Garcia? Is he
Tommy John surgery. So
is he coming back?
yeah, he'll be back in July. He had it last May, I think. So June, July, we'll probably see him back. So he and McCullers could be back. So I'm gonna bet Garcia will be back before McCullers.
What?
Show off my memorabilia, Bob.
Yes, and we're moving right into the memorabilia in our 61 superstar
I
guest
bought some
here.
memorabilia.
But we share his story.
I'll show this off and see if you guys tell me where this is from. Anybody know where this is from? Wrigley Field, yeah. This flew over Wrigley Field the last time the Astros played there. Now they have the flags in center on the scoreboard, they're the team names. And actually Jim Crane got that one. So I talked to the Cubs and I I got this one, after the Astros played there for the last time in 2013, so. This was flapping in the wind over Wrigley. What I like about it is you can see how it's all tattered on the end, so that's proof it was in the Windy City. Yep. It's on the flagpole. Yeah, I'm just glad I got this. I think it's something that's pretty cool, so that.
Cool.
You let him hang a little bit more? You can get a picture. I used to have it hanging in my garage, but I don't anymore.
Oh, you got it. Okay, look at you.
No, not really. I wish. I have stuff in an office and upstairs. I have stuff. I have stuff. So I have stuff everywhere, but not a man cave. But thank you guys for having me out. So I'll be following along this spring, Astros.com and Twitter as well if you're on Twitter.
All right. Memorabilia stories.
Today, Brian's on the Astros Hall of Fame Selection Committee.
Oh, yes. Yes, so the Astros Hall of Fame members, Brian's a part of that. And what do you think about this year's class? The Hall of Fame class?
I think it's great. I mean, Caminetti obviously is very deserving. Rene Cardenas is a friend of mine, got to know him very well. He's 93 years old, and I talked to him the other day, and he's as spry as ever. 63. Really excited. I didn't know much about him until I got to meet him, but obviously in the early days of the franchise, he was a pioneer in Spanish broadcasting and getting the Astros into Latin America. So well deserved for him. So 93.
All right. You got something, go ahead.
Okay, so Matt, after the 2017 season, he was working for Cheddar, which is the cable TV station in the New York area. So he got to interview Bregman and Springer. So here's a picture. So they actually did the interviews on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So this is Matthew with Bregman. So he told Bregman that he was at Game 5, and Bregman said, "Me too." And then 2 days later, Springer came with the trophy, and Springer kept telling everybody that Matthew was Dallas Keuchel. He had kind of a Keuchel beard, so he thought that was pretty funny. But anyway, the memorabilia was he got Springer to sign my World Series program, so that was great.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, so that's my most memorable memorabilia.
Who's next? Go ahead.
Mine doesn't stack up very good with that. Especially sitting next to this guy with about 8,000 Redman baseball. Go over in a second. About a month ago, I was shocked to find out that Ryan Miner, he was the answer to one of the trivia questions we had at SABR, where he was the guy that replaced Cal Ripken when he ended his streak. Odd.
No.
And so Ryan Miner was the answer to that trivia question, but he was also one of my son's teammates on the 94 OU national champions. And I remembered that I had Ryan's autograph on the 94 national championship bat. There's several other pro players on here. Ryan played for 5 years, and then he managed with them all the way till his death. So anyway, it was really fun getting those autographs. Then the other thing I've got real quick here is that I used to be a baseball card dealer, and I got another one right here in my midst with all these Redman cards. One of the things I traded a long time ago, about 50 years ago, was some 1948 World Series memorabilia of the ring box and some other stuff when the Indians won the World Series in '48. I traded for this book that is signed by Connie Mack. And so I thought that was pretty cool to get the Connie Mack, because I thought Connie Mack is just amazing what he did in baseball, managing for 50 years, and owning the team and playing for like 15 years also before that. These things, the other thing. Yeah.
Ryder played basketball too, right? I don't know.
Then he was drafted in the first round of the 76ers in basketball.
Reckon.
And his twin brother also played on the OU team. His autographs on there too. Russ Ortiz on there. I mean, there's guys, that team is just, it was amazing. And my son was very fortunate to be on that. Thank you. I'll go.
I've been a baseball card collector for a long time. My mother just threw all mine away. But I finished a collection a few years ago, the 55 Bowmans. I got them all off eBay because I'd never seen them before. And they were cheap because nobody collected them.
That's one of the television sets.
Yeah, and then I always liked Red Heart. I thought they were dumb. So I decided I would collect those. But not being particularly bright, I started buying these cards and then I realized, hey, these are red mans, not red hearts. And they were chewing tobacco. If they're really pretty cards and you could cut the bottom off and trade them in to get a hat, a baseball hat. So they did them from 52 to 55. And then I bought cards a lot, put them in a box and then forgot about them. So I put this set together and then I moved out of my office back to the office in my house. And going through all these cards and I got, oh, I have all these that I was buying off eBay when I finally, I was just finding some more I didn't know I had because I just threw them in a shoebox. I just found this last night, but you've never seen a red man. Yeah, it was interesting because I kind of met a guy on eBay, Myrtle Beach, and his handle was Red Man. That's all he did. He'd been doing it for years. He helped me out finish.
Well, and straight up the new ones.
Oh, and then there's some guy making cards on the internet now. I like getting them because he replicates sets. So when the very last is like Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, when you buy them for, you sell them for $50 a piece. But in my head, I said, well, the collection, which is more rare, the ones everybody has, or just the counterfeit this guy's putting out. There's nothing on the back of it. Anyway, there's some of
Cut
those.
this off
I just put them in.
and trade them in
Last
for
couple
like a
years.
baseball cap.
But it's kind of interesting.
Red Man's were 1952 to 1957.
Yeah, John and I were talking about, I'm glad he made it today. I'm interested in them and that's why.
Go ahead, Bob.
You heard us talk about the Houston Babies vintage baseball team. And this is the uniform that we are currently wearing. I can show you pictures of previous uniforms that we had. I brought a bat, and this is more like a war club than it is a bat. Obviously, back in the 1860s and 1870s, weren't many bat manufacturers, so you couldn't afford to have a bat broken. So they made these things pretty solid. This is about an 1880 bat. This one that's replicated that we did for our team. Said playing with Park in 1888. I'll pass that around.
I think they called this a mushroom.
No. This is the ball that we use, and still do use. It's smaller than a softball, but it's larger than a hard ball. It's called a lemon peel ball because of the way it's stitched together. Remember back when we played, you cannot use gloves. So you can imagine the first baseman in particular had to catch the ball. We usually try to throw it to him on a bounce, so it wouldn't be quite so hard. Bob Stevens is on our team. Joe's on our team. And of course, Mike McCoskey had played on our team. And we welcome young people who want to come out and play. We play 3 or 4 times a year, at least we did till the pandemic.
Kobe Patrick?
It's really fun. I have no problem finding some opposition. There is another team in town. And we usually play the George Ranch during the Texas last weekend in October. And big crowd, people come out there to see all the exhibits. And we get to play, and usually people say after our game, our exhibition, they ask, can we try? Can we try to catch the ball? Can we try to hit? We say, sure, we let them do that, so I'll pass that around. Our team started in 2006. A professor from Lone Star College, James Hickey, had a team up there, and he said, he came to our senior meeting,
You've done that.
and he asked if we would like to form a team. The long story short is we did form a team. We went out there to play our first game at Lone Star. And we only had 8 players. Well, you need 9 players to play, yeah. So we had to find a right fielder. But just so happened that they were having an event at school. And as part of the event, they had a Chick-fil-A booth. So we asked the Chick-fil-A chicken. He or she, we all. Yeah, so anyway.
It was the crowd.
Let's put it this way, after the first, he or she asked to be excused to find another player, so one of the wives of the folks on the team said, I can play right field, I can do it better than he can. And she did. We started out with first uniform for paint coat, paint jackets, paint shirts, and paint hats. And this is one of the early teams on here. Jimmy Dish, Bill McCurdy, and myself kind of put this thing started, and we've continued it now for over 20 years, but we haven't played a lot of games. We graduated to the next level in the uniform. I'll pass over around. We graduated to the Houston Babies. Houston started baseball here in 1888. And we're the last team in the Texas League. So they were called the Babies. Their real name was, I gotta look it up, it was the Red Stockings. With the Red Stockings, they went to the Mudcats, went to the Majestics, until they finally got to the Buffaloes. That's a picture of our more recent. We really, we can tell you the rules, we can go through the whole thing if you like, you know, like Mike sometimes plays the catcher, but he's not a catcher, he's a behind. And the pitcher is not a pitcher, he's a hurler. They had their own names, and he didn't score runs, he scored tallies. And to make the tally official, when you scored, you had to ring a bell. If you didn't ring the bell, it wasn't official. And
Said anyone?
a lot of unusual rules. Any ball that was hit fair and went foul was in play. And also, if you caught any ball that was hit in the air, if you caught it on one bounce, you were out. The most embarrassing thing that can happen is if you're up there at bat and you foul a ball off and the behind catches it, you're out. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. We have rules, stated rules for 1860, and we follow these rules pretty religiously. And so Mike's trying to put together a team.
72,
And we like volunteers to play.
71.
We have uniforms, if you like it. We have these uniforms available for those who want to take part. And also, in case some of you are interested in the history of Houston baseball, we have a book that's available that we'd be glad to sell to you. It's about Houston baseball in the early years. A number of you already have it. It's in-depth study of what baseball was like and has been like up until 1961.
Quite a few chapter members participated in
Yeah.
the book project.
And the last thing I have here, in case you're interested in where baseball was played early on, I have a list of baseball parks and their locations if you're curious about where baseball was played here in Houston. Keep it up.
Yes.
That's it. So the
Oh, God, yeah.
babies in the Texas League, were they in the building or the big?
It's already the Texas League. Then they went to Texas Southern League, they went a number of leagues, so they fell in the Texas League, 1930. They fell in the Major League team? No. This is not, they're independent. Not sure, look it up, I'm not sure, but I do, they were with the St. Louis Cardinals for a number of years. And at the very end, they went to Chicago Cubs.
It's in that blue book, Bob, it's in the chapter you read.
I know. Dizzy Dean. Played for Buck. Not for me.
I want to add something to what,
Please do, Mike.
yeah, there is a vintage baseball society of America. The vintage baseball World Series in Dearborn, Michigan, I think, every year in April. And I had a plan a couple of years ago that I haven't implemented yet. I think we might be able to use the SABR grant to do it, but I talked to Memorial Park about getting some fields in February or March preseason. And Bill Brown and Jason Bristol at Channel 11 had agreed to help publicize it and try to put on an exhibition. The Red Sox had agreed to stay. I talked to the Katy team. Flores, he was gonna try to get his team back up. But it kind of fell by the wayside and I couldn't do anything with that knee surgery last year. But then we would, and I had Dierker coming out for some stick. He was gonna, I was usually the blind Tom, the umpire, not the catcher. I did play a pitch, but I am still the oldest man to pick a professional baseball field in Sugar. Because I relieved, who was that? Yeah, Bob Blair. I relieved him and I beat him by 1 year out there. And I used to bat and you could have substitute runners and my daughter was running. So that was way back then.
I think that's a good point. We did play 3 games at Constellation Field, which was a real thrill.
Yeah, we would.
Hot as fire, but yeah, we played.
Yeah. It was fun. And we might, I don't know. But anyway, I was gonna try to have that 3-team round robin on this Memorial Park, get some publicity, get some more players and maybe some more teams or segments.
Yeah.
And I still might, if I need some help, pull that off this spring. I said Dierker, I talked to him about coming out with a pitch and then Tom and we'd get in an argument in the first inning, I could throw him out of the game. But it was just something to be funny or help kick the game off right and keep it light. Anyway, so anybody wants to get involved with that, let me know.
Go ahead.
So Bob mentioned the George Ranch, that sparked the memory. Of course, that's where the babies have played some games. I just attended, unfortunately, the funeral for my great uncle who lived to be 97. He passed in December, Henry Kopasinski. Nobody would know who he is except that his father was the foreman on the George Ranch way back. And George Ranch had a baseball team and he played on the George Ranch baseball team. Well, then World War II happened and he bought the Pacific Theater. Then on the GI Bill, he went to UT, that school in Austin. And he was on the baseball team for UT the year they won the Southwest Conference and went to the College World Series. They came in second place that year, but that's still pretty good. And then here was it, like 47, something like that. And he played in the Yankees organization, was in this minor league ball, but he played for the season. So I just thought I'd mention Henry Kopasinski, who played for the George Ranch. Pretty interesting. Very.
All right. Many of you know I was in the military, and in the 90s, I was stationed in Spokane in Fairchild Air Force Base. This is before the days of the internet. I mean, the real internet as we know it. Okay. And I have always been someone that liked to collect newspapers when very important things happen. Okay. So I have a newspaper. I was thumbing through some of my stuff last night, thinking about what I was going to bring. and I found one of my newspapers. Okay, and now there is a baseball side of this, but that is not the reason I saved this newspaper. Okay, the reason I saved this newspaper, well, the primary reason, it's the Spokesman Review, which is from Spokane. You look on the front page, the day after the Rockets won the championship, their first ever championship, the NBA championship. Okay, so naturally, Houstonian. Oh yes, I'm going to keep that. They also, by the way, happened to win their first championship on the 25th anniversary of my mom, their wedding anniversary, on June 22nd, 1994. Okay, their 25-year anniversary. But as I go through and I look at this, and I was looking at some of these stories, and I think it's kind of funny to take the snapshot, because we know newspapers are snapshots in time, right? And on the front page here, we got a couple of interesting stories. Of course, Spokane, that's Mariners country. Okay, I would listen to Mariners games, and they were pretty good, during that time period. Ken Griffey Jr., A-Rod, those kind of guys. And this story right here on the top. Ken Griffey Jr. hits his 31st home run, breaking Babe Ruth's record for most homers before the end of June. Okay. Then also a couple of other things of note here, and I'll pass this around. This is about a month and a half before the infamous 94 strike. Okay, so things are getting a little crazy between the owners and players. But this talks right here. As a baseball strike appears more imminent each day, even though the average player's salary is $1.2 million, the recent retirement of Dell Murphy's jersey reminded scout Paul Snyder of when Atlanta tendered its first offer to the budding star in 1974. Quote, he told me it was too much money to take it back and reconsider, Snyder said. We came back and offered $5,000 less, and he signed. Okay, so it tells you a little bit. And then there's also one other thing that I thought was funny. Here's another quote. A lot of players bring tapes and CDs to the park. Deion brings the actual artist. Deion Sanders. Reds GM Jim Bowden on Deion Sanders inviting rapper Hammer to join a workout. So I'll pass this around. And great story about the Spokane Indians. Also, I happened to notice that I used to go to Spokane Indians games when I was up there from 93 to 97. They had this young kid. They were part of the Royals franchise, if they're single A, something double A back then. They had a very young kid that they had signed that was playing in Spokane when I went to those games. The young kid was named Carlos Beltran. So I'll pass this around. That's what I got.
A couple months ago cleaning up. I found this was a bat that was got at Bat Day at Yankee Stadium in 1996. And thinking now it's kind of wild that they gave out 10,000 bats. Well, so I was like, they were not. It was just one they were giving out. Like, there was no name, no player name on there.
Well, I've got a very personal bit of memorabilia. Meaningful to me and probably just me and maybe my son here. But so I was playing Little League Baseball in 1966, so we do that math. And they had a couple of people from the Astros come and give us hints on baseball. It worked out with us. There was this young player named Jimmy Wynn who showed up, and then a coach named I think Jim Busby was one of the coaches. I'm not really sure who the manager was at 66. I don't know if that you have that in the baseball history. In any event, I got him to sign the ball. And so I'm a knucklehead, 12-year-old. So I don't know, a few days later, I'm looking for a baseball to play catch. You know how this can end. So I ended up playing catch the ball. It gets all scuffed up. And then I found it the other night, and it's dated. I think my coach put this on there with my name. And I hit the first home run in North Braeswood Bio Little League that year. So I've got that on there along with, you can barely see on the back with Jim Wynn's and Jim Busby's signature on the back of it. And I don't know if, Jim, I guess in '66, he was pretty young, right? I mean, had he been playing for many years in '66? Does that ring a bell?
He started like 64.
Born in '64?
Something like that.
Okay, so he was probably already stepped. And if y'all don't know, or maybe some of the younger folks in here, is that he was number 24. And, you know, we always identified, as a fan, young fan, always identified him with Willie Mays. He was, you know, they compared him, he was our Willie Mays, right? And he was damn good, and like Jeff Bagwell, he had a lot of home runs, but he played in the sports writer used to call it the cavernous astrodome. And it was hard to hit home runs in the astrodome. He had a bunch of them, of course, as so did Bagwell. So I'll pass it along. That's just a very personal memory.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, look.
Baseball and football signed by Bo Jackson. An interesting story behind how this came to be. So I'll give you just a little bit of history about Bo Jackson, because I'm sure you've heard of Bo Jackson. And because I played the football around and the baseball around, it's not around, you can look at it. Jackson, first of all, he's the only professional athlete ever to be an all-star in 2 professional sports. NFL and an all-star in Major League Baseball. So Bo was born in 1962. His mother had a favorite TV show, and those old timers in the room like me will remember Ben Casey. Ben Casey was a doctor. He was a medical show. And so Bo's mother loved this show, Ben Casey, and she loved the actor. His name is Vince Edwards. So Bo's name is Vincent Edward Jackson. Vincent Edward Jackson, after the actor Vince Edwards. And he acquired the nickname Bo as a boy, and it stuck throughout his life. And so he was born in a small town, Bessemer, Alabama. He was the 8th of 10 children. And they were very poor. It was very small and a very poor town. He became obviously quite prominent in the town because he was such a terrific athlete. And he played baseball, football, and track in high school. Interesting thing about his track accomplishments, he was a 2-time state decathlon champ. And he was so far ahead of the competition that by the last event, which is always the 1,500-meter run, he didn't even participate. Well, throughout his career as an athlete, was never known as a gym rat, and never known as a hard worker. Bo didn't like to train. Bo was one of the most gifted physical specimens ever. And his speed and his strength and his agility and all he's associated with great athleticism. But it didn't come through great training. He did some training and some weightlifting, but that was pretty much it. And it was an example of his attitude towards running. He didn't like it, so he didn't even participate. But he also high jumped darn near 7 feet, and he triple jumped at the end of 50 feet. 6'9" is his highest high jump, and his triple jump was 48 feet 8 inches. Well, as you may know, Bo went on to become a Heisman Trophy winner. He went to Auburn University and played football from 82 to 85. And he was actually drafted by the Yankees to play baseball out of high school. But he did not pursue that. He decided to go to Auburn University. Pat Dye was the head coach at Auburn. And so Bo was recruited and went to play football and baseball and even run track at Auburn. One of his best known plays, it's called Bo Over the Top. When he was a freshman in 1982, they were playing in the, what they call the Iron Bowl there, which is Alabama Auburn. And Alabama had a lead very late in the game. Auburn had driven the ball down to pretty near the goal line. And again, Bo was a freshman at this point. But thinking back about his prowess as a high jumper in high school, they called a timeout. He convinced the coach just to let him jump over the line. And of course, that's what happened. They called the play. Bo startled everybody as he just, with his great legs of his, approached the line and then just whoop, went over the line, landed in the end zone, and Auburn won the game 23-22. And that's called the Bo Over the Top game. That also happened to be Bear Bryant's last year. Alabama went on to play the bowl game, but that was really Bear Bryant's last game of coaching Alabama in the regular season. So, both played obviously great baseball, and he. By the Yankees, but when it came time for his senior year, he was going to be the first overall pick in the NFL. And the owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the time was a man named Culberson. And Culberson, while Bo was still a student in the spring of '85, he wanted Bo to come down and basically take a physical and make sure that everything was tip top because he was going to be a number one overall pick. Well, Culberson arranged for this trip and Bo made the trip and they flew him down to Tampa and so forth.
84,
Well,
just something ready?
Crisis, because unbeknownst to, I can't believe this happened, but it was unbeknownst to the Auburn administration. The baseball coach didn't know, Pat Dye didn't know, the football coach. The administration didn't know. Well, this qualified as professional activity, and Bo was declared disqualified for the rest of the baseball season, his senior year at Auburn. And he swore up and down, and he told Culberson, "Don't draft me, because I will never play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers." And they drafted him, and he basically thumbed his nose on him. He said, "I'm not going," and he didn't. He was drafted by the Kansas City Royals in the 4th round, the 105th player draw. So he wound up starting as a player for the Kansas City Royals. Got a 3-year deal worth right around $1 million. One year that the Raiders, the Los Angeles Raiders, took a chance and drafted Bo. But his professional career started with baseball before it started with football. And he made the All-Star team in baseball in 1989. And you may remember this, being all baseball fans. He started that game. Berkeley was on defense the first time. He made a great defensive line in the top of the first. Then he leads off the bottom of the first. And it's a 448-foot home run, lead off batter. And Vince Scully was calling the game. And I doing some checking in, I thought it was pretty clever. Vince Scully, one of his great calls. Vince Scully was young and would say, "Look at that. That's the low." I guess it's the only All-Star game ever where the first 2 batters in the first inning both hit home runs. Another great baseball moment for Bo was a game against the Orioles in July of 1990. Again, this is another highlight that you might remember. He was on a dead run in center field and caught the ball and then wound up running up the wall. Yeah. Rather than colliding in the wall, he took about 3 big steps up the wall and back down onto the field. Terrific athletics. He went on to play pro ball for the Raiders, Los Angeles Raiders. And he played with them for 4 seasons. And he also played a little bit with He had that hip injury, and that's what really, really ended his professional career. On both sides, football and baseball. The story that surrounds the baseball and football. Well, here's this great athlete in both sports, and he's coming to Philadelphia. At the time, I worked for a company in Philadelphia with the name of Crowley Maritime. That's somebody who transferred me to Houston in '92. We had an employee at Crowley who played for the Raiders. His name was Pete Madison. You remember that name? He was a running back, went to Miami, played in the days of John Madden coaching and great Raider football. Well, he wound up working for us, but he always had that hook with the Raiders. So in the season of 1989, the Raiders were coming to play the Eagles in Philadelphia. And those of us in the sales group, well, always thought, wow, what a great opportunity. What can we do? Pete arranged for us to bring customers in on the Saturday walk around. Practice, they wear sweats and they do a very light workout before the game on Saturday. So we come in, sales guys, customers, and we have access to the team. Now we're on the sidelines while they're doing their workout. Now Davis is there, and great Raiders like Howie Long are there. And Jay Schrader was the quarterback back then. He was not a great player, but a good player at that time. It's over, and we're allowed to go in locker room. And I'm standing there, and I am talking to Howie Long, and I'm talking to Bob Golick. Now, Mike Golick's an ESPN thing. Of course, Mike Golick played pro volleyball. And he was on that defensive line with Howie Long. And I'm standing there talking to these two guys, and Bo Jackson is in the locker right across the aisle. I brought myself a football because I thought, man, chance to get a guy to sign these two balls, and he may win the Hall of Fame of both sports. He's so damn. Well, when we entered the clubhouse, and I had my little athletic bag there, I went over to one of the attendants and I said, listen, I want you to know that I had a ball here. Because I don't want you to think later that I took one of your balls. This is my ball. And he told me right away, he said, Bo will sign your football, but he won't sign your baseball. It's because it's football season. Okay. And he won't sign your baseball. Well, when the moment came, when I'm standing there again with Golick and Howie Long and Bo, and I take out the football and the pen. Bo, would you please sign my football? Now, Bo's very few words. He didn't say anything. He took the football and he signed it. No problem. Number 34. You see it on the ball. Hand it back to me. And I said, Bo, would you please sign my baseball? Now, this is where he spoke to me. His words were very, very few, but very emphatic. I signed your football. I know, Bo, and I really appreciate it, but I have never going to get a chance to be this close to you again. Would you please sign my baseball? A little more emphasis. I signed your football. Thank you, Bo. Good luck. Well, I do have a ball signed by Bo Jackson, baseball. And that happened because my brother, Tom, he was living in the area of, he was living in a little town in Oklahoma. And not too far away from the Kansas border and
85.
Radio type call-in contest for charity and so forth, and he won. And the prize was you get to go to a Kansas City Royals game and sit in the dugout and meet the players and so forth. And he got Bo Jackson from the Kansas City Royals to sign a baseball. And he gave it to me. And that's how I wound up with a baseball and a football, both signed by Bo Jackson.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to conclude with, on my baseball cards right here. So it's a weird thing. There's 3 players in there wearing 2 different hats for the same season that were traded. And the card company wasn't that good. It's actually they made two cards of the same number. There and there. But I wanted to tell y'all my favorite moment in vintage baseball. I was blind, Tommy,
Oh,
an umpire. And Joe came out to play his first game and he was so excited. It was his first at bat. And he's all nervous up there and takes a couple of pitches and he swings and he hits this weak grounder. First the run and his feet get to moving and then falls in the dirt and he falls across home plate. Just laying there. Well, I call him safe.
Okay, we all know the rubber little mat things. Okay, all right, that's it. All right, okay. So to close out today, we'll have a trivia contest. I have 4 gifts and I have 4 questions. All right, the gifts are this: the long ball by Tom Adelman. All right, the bad guys won right here, Jeff Perlman. You guys know I collect pins. Here's a you can take on this one, $2. 2023 ALCS Astros Rangers pin. And this pin, I have quite a few. I got these from Mike Acosta. It says 1980 World Series, and you see the Astrodome. And Astros. Yeah, 80 World Series. What's the problem with this? Right. Acosta had hundreds of these, and he gave me a few of these. So I have 4 questions, and the first person to answer can come and pick up their gift. Second, third, and fourth down the line. But this day in Astros history, you know the answer, please raise your hand. Don't blurt it out. Okay? I'll start with an easy one. 2005. Houston avoids arbitration for the 8th straight year by coming to terms with pitcher blank on a 2-year deal worth $16.9 million. Roy Oswald. All right, which one you want? Hey, raise your hand. Oh, should I give it to him? He didn't raise his hand. Which one you want? One of the 2 books or the 2 things? 80 World Series. 1986, Astros extend a spring train invitation to reliever blank. The right-hander rewards them with 3 wins and 7 saves during their division title season. 1986. Oh, Scott. Oh, if I give you his nickname, it's not Charlie Burfield. If I give you a nickname, it'll give it away. One of my favorite Astros players. Go ahead. No. No. Brian Lopez. Oh, Aurelio Lopez, Senor Smoke. Which one, sir?
Well, I'll take this.
This one, right?
Yeah, and I have the pen, so.
1976. This person was born in Waco, Texas. The Rice grad was a major power source for the Astros, leading the league in RBIs. Somebody raises their hand. Is it Bob? You got to hit your hand up first. Perfect. Okay. All right. Bad guys won or the pin. Pin. Okay. 1967. Astros sell pitcher blank to the New York Mets. A washout over 2 seasons in Houston. This player emerged as the saves leader for the Mets when they win it all in 1969. Nope. 1967. No. Come on. The 60s guys in here. You know this one? Ron somebody? Ron Taylor. Ron Taylor.
Yeah.
By the way, all these things happen on today's date in Astros history. Okay? There you go. Thank you, everybody. It was a great event. Thank you, Brian. Next chapter meeting, February 19th, Bill Boudreau. He's going to talk about the MLB TV situation, MLB TV Armageddon. Okay? See you all February 19th. Have a great day. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, who sent money back to baseball? Like, spot?
No.
Say again.
I got the back, I got the back.
Where'd you get your daily? No, this is AstrosDaily.com. Astros Daily. Yeah. Yeah, we're done. Thank you all, Phyllis, Gloria. Here. Sure. 27, Scott came in.
Six, and then I can him is 77.
All right.